One of the things that we share quite often with nonprofit staff is what we call the crafting framework. And it's basically, think about crafting good prompts. Folks who have not explored those projects, custom GPT spaces, they have different names in all of these tools. It is one of the most impactful upskilling opportunities. Train on associations, right? And so often I encourage people to think about what are the patterns in the work that you do that we could train large language models or AI tools on. And surfacing those patterns makes it much clearer where there needs to be work done before we even go to the AI tool versus what's AI ready.
You're listening to The Nonprofit Boost, where Double the Donation and industry leaders share practical tips to help you grow revenue and boost corporate fundraising at your nonprofit. Welcome back to The Nonprofit Boost by Double the Donation. I'm your host, Kathleen, and today we're going to talk about a topic that is reshaping our sector. We are going to explore how to harness nonprofit AI tools to empower your team and shift the needle on your daily workload. I'm so excited for this one, and joining us today is Remy Reya from Compass Pro Bono. Remy is a director of AI and thought leadership at Compass Pro Bono. He has consulted for more than 60 organizations on responsible AI adoption and is frequently tapped as a speaker and program expert on AI in the nonprofit sector. Remy has a bachelor's in public policy from Princeton University, an executive certificate in AI machine learning deployment from MIT's Sloan School of Management, and a certificate in change management from the Association for Talent Development. Hi, Remy. Glad to have you here.
Hi, Kathleen. Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Great. I think AI is the topic on everyone's mind right now. So let's not waste any time and let's just jump straight in. Remy, you've done incredible work in helping nonprofits reclaim their time using AI. At Double the Donation, we deeply understand the power of that kind of transformation. We saw it when nonprofits moved from clunky manual spreadsheets to automated matching gifts. AI is that exact same leap forward, but just massively scaled up. Still, a lot of folks are using Chat GPT, Gemini, and other LLMs as a glorified search engine. So let's tackle that idea first. What is the biggest mindset shift needed to treat AI less like a search engine and more like a junior intern? And briefly, how do you figure out which daily tasks to delegate it?
Really appreciate that question. And I think that so much of the answer is exactly what you said. I mean, I've heard someone refer to AI tools as a drunk intern. And I think that's actually a helpful way to think about this technology, because AI tools can act in strange and unexpected ways. So it's good to arrive at them expecting some level of weirdness and misalignment, but they also thrive on context and specificity, and they really want to please you as the user. And in that way, they're a lot like junior interns. And I think if we can remind ourselves of that fact and really bake it into how we collaborate with these tools, and really think of working with these tools as collaboration, right? It is different from other technologies where we don't have the opportunity to shape most software using natural language, but large language models and generative AI tools, we have a lot more say in how they interact with us. So often what I encourage folks to do is remind themselves of that fact in a very physical way. Maybe put a sticky note on your computer as you're starting to use large language models and other AI tools more, so that every time you collaborate with it, you remember, this is a drunk intern, right? I want to use it and interact with it in the way that I might interact with an intern, obviously without anthropomorphizing it, but setting the right expectations going into collaborating with an AI tool. I see a lot of people very excited about AI's possibility. I'm very excited about AI's potential, but emphatically, AI is not a silver bullet. And one of the things that we have to understand is that it's going to fill in information gaps with assumptions, right? And so one of the things, to your second question, that I often offer staff of nonprofits to think about is not only to give as much context as possible, and I can share later a prompting framework to that end, but also to be really specific about when and how we go to AI tools for different parts of our work. So one of the frameworks that I use quite often with organizations, I call the head, the hands, and the heart. And it basically gives nonprofits an opportunity to think about what elements of their work really depend on their head, meaning their expertise and their brain power, what really relies on their hands, meaning it's just moving information around from one system to another, and what really depends on their heart or their presence and their empathy and their humanity. And that framework tends to map pretty well against AI tools, which can augment our cognition and our head tasks, automation tools, which can support hands tasks and rote manual labor, and then the hard tasks really usually stay human only. And I find, having done that with many, many dozens of nonprofit leaders over time, it often leads to revelations about the way we do work, but also where AI tools should fit in, right? We don't want to just slap AI on everything that we do and hope that it works. We really want to be intentional about where we apply it and then get creative and expansive about what we're asking of the tool.
I really love how you mentioned how AI tools are collaborators and that head, hand, heart framework and being more intentional in using these kinds of tools. And I know that you've mentioned it earlier a little bit. You advocate for prompt engineering and custom assistance to avoid those robotic first drafts. Can you walk us through a quick framework or a quick example where tweaking a prompt or building custom GPTs, custom gems, instead of pasting your organization's mission statement into the chat every single day, you're essentially like kind of creating more highly trained digital team members, right? So how do we use that necessary personalization and how do we instantly take the outcome from mediocre to mission ready?
So I'll start with the prompt engineering question because I think it's the most accessible endpoint. And then we can talk about custom assistance because I think it's a really huge opportunity for nonprofit staff and leaders that's often untapped. So prompt engineering, what we're talking about is basically the art and science of prompting a large language model well. And so if you use Chat GPT or Gemini or Claude or Perplexity or any other tool, chat-based AI tool, you have done prompting because you go into the tool, you ask it to create some output or you ask it to search for something on your behalf, and it returns that output to you. There are a lot of different ways to get good results from these tools, but pretty consistently, there are a few ingredients that lead to better results, more robust results, right? Avoiding that mediocre middle ground that you were talking about, Kathleen. And so one of the things that we share quite often with nonprofit staff is what we call the crafting framework. And it's basically, think about crafting good prompts, right? It's an opportunity to do a couple of things. One is upfront, before you go into the tool, to just stop and imagine what someone, an intern, might need to know to do this process well, right? To execute on the task that you're asking for from the language model. And then to get really intentional about the desired outcomes and process, right? So in my mind, one of the goals of prompt engineering in this framework is to apply some intentionality where otherwise we might mindlessly stumble into a prompt, right? And people tell me often that they're worried about over-reliance on AI tools. This is an amazing intervention point for that exact purpose, for mitigating that exact outcome, right? If I can go into a tool and get really specific and clear about how I want to interact with it up front and what I'm asking of it, I'm likely going to feel much better about my engagement with it on the other end. So the crafting framework it's an acronym. C is for context and examples, right? So can we give it as much specific context as possible? Because these tools thrive on examples, they thrive on specificity. So the more, again, if I had an intern joining my organization today, I wouldn't say, go write an annual report and hope they come back with a good annual report. I would say, here are examples of the last 5 years of annual reports. Here's what we liked about 2023. Here's what we didn't like about 2024. Take a stab at an annual report for 2026, right? So context and examples are really important. R is for role. So giving the AI tool a persona can actually really help the outcome because it puts it into, these tools are trained on vast swaths of human language. And so they can access different personas. They can kind of role play. And giving it a role, if I say you're an expert nonprofit marketing consultant, or you are a nonprofit CEO, or you're a nonprofit board member or volunteer, it's going to change the way it responds to me. So CR, context and role. A is for action. That's the core of any prompt. What do you want it to actually do? And how precise can you get about the doing? F is for format. Does it need to spit out a bulleted list, a memo, a spreadsheet, or something else? And T is for target audience. So who actually needs to see this on the other end? Because that's going to change the way it transforms the inputs to outputs. So that's craft. And the ING, crafting, is iterate, nudge, and guide. Because very often I see people just take the first thing they get back from ChatGPT or Gemini and feel pretty disappointed. And what I would offer is that if you brought an intern onto your team and they wrote an annual report for you and you didn't like it, you wouldn't say, well, that's just how interns are, and then go and do it yourself. But we do that with large language models. And what we have to remember is that these tools can learn over time, they can take feedback, and they're going to do much better if we give them feedback over time. So that's the crafting framework: context, role, action, format, target audience, and then iterate, nudge, and guide till you get to a result that you like. And the last thing I'll say on this, you mentioned custom GPTs, custom assistants. For the folks who have not explored those projects, custom GPT spaces, they have different names in all of these tools. It is one of the most impactful upskilling opportunities for most casual users of large language models, because it allows you to take all of that context you've now curated in the crafting framework and codify it. So I can go into Claude or Chat GPT, and I've built specific portions of the model that are cordoned off for specific kinds of tasks. I have my marketing expert, I have my grant writing expert, I have my social media expert, and all of them have been given different prompts. And when I go in and interact with them, they know exactly how we're going to collaborate, because I've given them a system prompt that lives in the custom GPT or the project. It's a little hard if you haven't played with these tools to visualize it, but it is one of the most impactful things you can play around with. So I encourage everyone who has not to just cordon off 20 minutes this week and test out custom GPTs or projects in whichever tool you use.
Really love how most of your tips here is very actionable by tomorrow. Like you can do it later, actually. And I kind of see a theme that floats right now is intentionality when you really interact with these LLMs. And I loved your framework crafting. And,
That's it.
as while we're doing this or while we're conversing, LLMs really feel like junior interns that we need to constantly train, that we need to constantly feeding information that we would feed what a junior intern. In terms of over-reliance in AI, I know that you've kind of touched upon it a little bit earlier. We don't really want to be over-reliant on these LLMs because they can hallucinate. So the question is like, how can teams use AI for deep research without just blindly accepting the first draft, as you've mentioned earlier? And how does asking AI to explain its reasoning help challenge our own blind spots?
I think it's one of the most pressing questions of our time in many ways, because in so many ways we are stumbling into this technology without proactively defining how we want to relate to it. And so I think the opportunity for teams and communities in this moment is to get extremely clear not only about our expectations from the technology, but how we want to relate to it right now. And I want to be really clear about, when we talk about AI as a junior intern, there's no encouragement to anthropomorphize or humanize these tools, right? That's its own set of problems. But it is helpful to think about how we collaborate with people in collaborating with this software, because it is different from how we've collaborated with other software in the past. It's fundamentally different. To your question about over-reliance, I think that a really important opportunity for teams is to, there are a couple of kind of prompts for critical thinking that I'll share that I think are really useful. But going into interacting with the tech, I think it's important to remember that the goal is co-intelligence, right? So Ethan Mollick is a Wharton professor, writes a lot about AI. He wrote this book called Co-Intelligence that's a really good primer for anyone just entering into this AI space. The idea is that AI has certain strengths and certain weaknesses, and humans have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. And we really want to embrace our strengths and embrace AI's strengths without dampering either of us, right? And so can we lean into what makes us human, what makes us so good at the specific things that humans are good at, while also embracing the technology at our disposal, right? I would never tell a homelessness case manager at a housing nonprofit, you should outsource your job to AI, or you should outsource client interactions to a tool like ChatGPT, right? Because when I think about the kind of work in the nonprofit sector that really needs the human touch, it's that kind of work. It's the warm touch work. It's the relational work. It's the trust building that is so fundamental to the relationships that we build in our communities, right? And that means our reputations and our sustainability as organizations. But there are a lot of kinds of work that we do that don't fundamentally depend on our unique expertise or our heart. And that's why the head, the hands, and the heart framework I find so useful for surfacing those opportunities to lean into AI's unique talents. When we talk about AI's unique talents, generative AI, chatbots, modern AI tools, most are built on a technology called machine learning. And machine learning is fundamentally fancy autocomplete. So when you go into a tool like ChatGPT, what it is doing is basically, in a very sophisticated way, guessing the next word or token after the word that you put in. based on all of the data it's been trained on. It's trained on associations, right? And so often I encourage people to think about what are the patterns in the work that you do that we could train large language models or AI tools on. And surfacing those patterns makes it much clearer where there needs to be work done before we even go to the AI tool versus what's AI ready, so to speak. Once we've done that work, there are a couple of ways we can interact with these tools that I think are really useful and actually proactively mitigate the fear of over-reliance pretty reliably. So the first one that you alluded to, Kathleen, is asking it to explain its reasoning, right? Ask why. If I got something back from a human collaborator that I didn't understand, I would ask them why they made that choice, right? So why did you add that word at the end? What made you recommend the 2-sentence version over the 3-sentence version? Explain your thinking so I can determine whether or not I agree with it, right? These are all things you can tack on to the end of a collaboration process with an AI tool instead of just accepting the first thing you get from it, right? The other thing that I think is really important about this process is flipping the script so that AI is an editor instead of a first drafter. So you know your organization's values and mission and tone better than anyone and better than any tool does. So I would encourage folks not to go into Chat GPT and say, write our annual report or write this email to our audience without starting from AI as an editor. So I always, the number one biggest sort of shift in AI as a writing partner that I recommend is instead of saying, write me a caption for Giving Tuesday, say, here's my caption for Giving Tuesday, or here's my bulleted list of ideas I want to include in my caption for Giving Tuesday. Help me reformat this, right? Help me make it more concise. Help me make it stronger. Recommend ways that I could edit it, right? Instead of taking AI as the writer, because AI has this weird voice that you can catch on to after you use these tools enough, we don't want to give it the opportunity to change our voice fundamentally. So give yourself the opportunity to define the tone, the voice, and the core of your expected work product, and then ask AI to edit and suggest on top of that. And the last quick sort of tips I would give on using AI in ways that foster critical thinking and not over reliance. One is blind spot prompting. So ask AI to reveal gaps in your reasoning, right? It sort of infuses this pause before action. So I could say, here's my plan for tackling this project. What am I not considering here? Instead of making assumptions, ask me questions about information that I might have left out. Or I could give it a persona, right? You're an expert in nonprofit fundraising. What would you critique about our approach to Giving Tuesday? So blind spot prompting, because humans are also fallible, humans are also biased. It gives us an opportunity to iterate on our own ideas. And the last thing I would say is when you get to the end of a collaboration process with a large language model, make sure that it learns from that process, right? I often say, read back through our whole chat, digest our entire collaboration process. Here's the final product. Pay attention to how I engaged, the kinds of modifications I made, how I shifted the language or the tone, what I responded well to, and then iterate on this in the future. Next time we collaborate, make sure that you build that into how we collaborate, right? Don't just take whatever it gives you and then edit it and then never go back to the tool, right? That's the ultimate learning opportunity, is to retrain it on your finalized output. So those are a couple of things that I see pretty reliably change the way that people feel they're interacting with these tools. And the number one thing I would say beyond any technique is just intentionality. Take a pause before you use a tool and think about how you would want to interact with it in a way that feels good to you.
Nonprofits are always being asked to do more with limited time and resources. Double the Donations virtual summits offer practical insights, expert advice, and actionable ideas to help you grow your impact. Check out the summit calendar and register at doubletheDonation.com/virtual-summits. We'll see you there.
Yeah, I really like your fresh perspective on making AI as the editor rather than making them do the first draft. And you're making me actually rethink how I use AI. And as you mentioned earlier, we know our own voices better. So us taking the lead than having AI lead us is better than anything else. I really like this reframing as well. And we kind of see that blind spot phenomenon too constantly in the fundraising space. And it really surfacing that concept of co-intelligent that you've mentioned earlier. For example, our data shows that $47 billion in workplace giving funds is estimated to go unclaimed per year. And these are vital funds left on the table simply because orgs don't have the same, or they don't have systems in place to see these. And without kind of automation, there is a significant gap surrounding that, like that's available in workplace giving programs and the donors who qualify for them. And when you use AI to catch these strategy gaps that you've mentioned earlier that you didn't see at the first round and at the first time, it carries that exact same energy. It completely flips the fear of losing our critical thinking on its head. And I think that really that human element is exactly what we need to protect. And when we look at this from a team-wide level perspective, building buy-in for these tools can feel incredibly daunting and overwhelming by the sheer volume of AI platforms out there. You've mentioned quite a few: Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, and the like. So, Remy, if an organization wants to start adopting these tools without burning out their team, what is the very first manageable step that they should take? Is there a simple browser extension or integration that you recommend they try when they sit at their desks tomorrow?
I love this question because it's a question I get a lot, and I think it's a real opportunity for reframing, because I'd argue it's actually not about the tools at all. So what we see over and over is that the most successful organizations that embrace AI and move into this moment are not the ones that treat AI as an IT issue. Those ones struggle. The organizations that treat AI as a culture issue, a people and culture question, and a process are the ones that really thrive. And that is because the most value that organizations get from AI lives outside of the technology. It lives in building the systems and the infrastructure that allow people to experiment and engage in the discussion and field their concerns about AI up front instead of feeling like they get buried. So what I'd encourage for folks listening to this, if you work at a nonprofit and you're in a leadership position, or you just happen to be engaged in the AI process, or no one's really started the conversation, I would come to your team and really open that dialogue, right? Field the concerns about AI, get clarity on the why. What is the actual organizational why for AI integration beyond just keeping up with the hype train, right? It is a very noisy moment in the nonprofit sector. It's a very noisy moment in this country and in our society in general for a variety of reasons. But AI is overwhelming. It's overwhelming to try to keep up. And your goal should not be to try to keep up. It should be to build systems that create opportunities for sustainable integration. So that's really what we focus on. We take a change management approach. We try to empower people to participate in the conversation, and we want to build trust with people instead of enforcing top-down mandates, because that breaks trust, right? People don't want to be told you have to use this tool or you're going to lose your job. People want to know this is an opportunity for us to rethink the way we work and rethink how we deliver our mission and what is possible for the communities that we are supporting, the reason that we got into this work in the first place. That's what brings folks on board, is knowing that there's something oriented to their own personal values and the organization's mission. The other thing that I think is important to know up front is that there's a real risk in this moment, what I call the impact treadmill, which is, we survey a lot of nonprofit staff. We ask them how they want to use the time and capacity they free up with AI. And very consistently, they say things like deep thinking, strategic planning. They want to do more warm touch work, right? The things that got them into the mission in the first place. But we also ask them, what do they do with the time they free up with AI, right? Some of these people we survey are saving, they say they're reclaiming or saving 2, 5, 10 hours a week using AI tools, doing tasks that they used to not, do manually, right? And when we ask people how they use the time they freed up, the number one response is catching up on backlog tasks, right? And shortly thereafter is nothing specific. Time just gets absorbed into the day. So the risk in this moment is that we encourage our teams to use this technology. It speeds up the way we work. It makes a lot more possible. And then the goalposts shift. And a year or 2 or 5 years from now, we don't actually feel any human or mission advancing value from the tools and what they've made possible. That's the impact treadmill in action, right? I named it after the hedonic treadmill, right? We can do more and more and more, get more and more and more things, and we're never happy enough, right? We can always do more for our mission. We can always move faster, serve more people, raise more money, and that's great. But this is also an opportunity in this moment where the way we work is shifting to get really intentional about what our expectations of each other are. And then to take that approach as we move AI into the way we work. And so if I had to recommend one simple stop, a simple exercise or activity, it would actually not be playing with the tools at all. It would be asking your team to do this North Stars exercise that we've designed. And there are really three questions that we ask people to reflect on up front before they go and play in these AI tools and before it becomes deeply part of how we work and it becomes just an automatic, right? So number one is, how do you want to feel using AI a year from now, right? Maybe you want to feel confident. Maybe you want to feel competent. Maybe you want to feel skilled or excited. That's number one. Number two is, how do you want to feel doing your work a year from now beyond AI, right? What do you want more of and less of? Do you want more time with constituents? Do you want less time doing administrative work that feels burdensome to you? And the last question is, what will it actually take to get there? What commitment can you make to moving toward that outcome? The risk is that we don't set those North Stars now, and a year from now, we're all using AI and we're moving faster than ever, but we haven't gotten any value to our mission or to our humanity from that because we didn't anchor in the North Stars up front. But if we set those North Stars and we have our whole team set those North Stars, it gives us a benchmark. So we can check in 3 months from now. Are we feeling more confident? Are we feeling lighter? Are we feeling less stressed? Are we feeling like we're getting more time with our constituents? And if we're using AI more and we're not feeling those things come through, then we've steered off track. So for anyone listening who is at a nonprofit, who's leading this process, or who sees a vacuum, I would really encourage you to start with the why, because the why will not only give you a benchmark and something to aim for from AI that's not just AI for AI's sake, right? It gives you something to really anchor in. It also gives you a clue as to what your team is going to be motivated by, right? What would make people excited about integrating AI? Most people don't really care about the tools themselves, right? I'm a unique exception. I'm really interested and excited about learning this technology. But when I go and consult for organizations, I assume that they don't care about AI at all, except insofar as it serves their mission and their work. So how can we get really clear on what the actual value add we want from AI is that is not AI itself?
Yeah, I really love how you pointed out that AI is our co-collaborator, but at the same time, we are still the ones spearheading our missions and just really always going back to our whys. And here in the nonprofit boost, we love to end things with something fast, something actionable, and something fun. So, what is your absolute favorite AI magic trick or shortcut right now?
Yeah. So I have been loving and raving about skills in large language models for the last month or two. And it's kind of a little known feature. Whenever I bring it up in a nonprofit setting, I usually get blank stares at first. But I think, like custom GPTs and Claude projects and Perplexity Spaces and Gemini gems, it is one of the most transformative ways to use these tools. And it's actually very easy. So skills are basically bundles of files that tell a large language model how to execute a specific workflow or task. Okay. So one of those files is usually a markdown file that's just basically a document that has instructions, like a prompt, right? Another file might be, instructions on how to create a certain kind of document or how to analyze a certain kind of document. So a skill is a bundle of files, and what it allows you to do is basically to ask the language model to replicate a process over and over in the future using the same instructions. So what I encourage people to do, if you're listening to this and you are jazzed up about AI, you want to try something new, this is a really amazing and exciting way to sort of get more value from your tools. I would encourage you to go into your large language model of choice, right? Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, whatever it is. And at the end of a process, a collaboration process, once you've gotten to the point where you really like the result, tell the language model to turn that process into a reusable skill that you can use in the future. So as an example, if I always ask Claude to put together a write-up of foundations, right? Like we're looking at prospective foundations who could fund our work. We want to ask Claude each time to analyze the foundation's website, analyze their mission, analyze the funding opportunities they've made available in the past, and create a short blurb that basically tells us if it's a good fit, right? So if I've done that a few times, I might go into my chat in Claude and I might say, great, I really like what you've put together. Maybe I would push back. I would say, we iterate, nudge, and guide, right? We say, could you make it a little more specific? Could you cite your sources? Could you add a little bit of detail on this front? And at the end of that process, once I like what the language model is producing, I say, turn this into a skill so I can use it in the future on new foundations. And now I can go into a brand new chat in Claude and I can say, analyze this foundation for fit, and it will automatically trigger that skill. It knows exactly the kind of output that we're looking for because we've trained it to recreate that output in a specific way. Some organizations, if you're on a team account, this may need to be turned on. Not every large language model has these yet, though they are coming very quickly. But if you're on Claude or Chat GPT, especially, or Perplexity, those are readily accessible. And I really encourage you to play with them because all it takes is appending that statement at the end of a process. You can say, turn this into a skill so I can use it in the future. And it will create this bundle of files that automatically allows Claude or Chat GPT to recreate that process. And the last thing I'll say on this is, part of the reason people often come and say, I'm not getting the results I want from language models. It doesn't seem like it's as strong as I thought it would be. One of the reasons, there are many, many reasons that could be. One of the reasons is because of what's called context degradation. And in a specific chat, if you're having a really good time chatting with Claude or ChatGPT in one thread, and it's super duper long, it's gone over multiple days or weeks or months even, you might be resistant to giving up that thread because there's so much learning and context that's happened there. Skills allow you to package that in a way that lets you start fresh because within one thread, over time, it will degrade in quality. It'll get confused because it's reading through all of those past messages in that thread. So I want to create a skill that allows me to start a brand new chat, start fresh, give it brand new context, and train it on how to do this specific process over time. I have created probably 30 skills in the last month because I'm so jazzed about them. But it would be a win if, even one person listening to this went into their language model, asked it to create a skill, and had a little light bulb moment, because I think it's one of the most powerful and underrated new features of these tools. So I'd really encourage you, all you have to do is add that natural language prompt at the end of a collaboration process, say, turn this into a skill, save it to your workspace, and use it gleefully in the future.
Wait, no, I'm actually so amazed right now. I never knew anything like it. Like custom gems are already so useful. What more for skills? And you mentioned having a long thread with LLMs and you can't let go.
Yeah.
I am one of those people. So I'm really excited to try that. Actually, like the second we log off today, I'll definitely try that now. And maybe in a month or
Amazing.
so, I'll also have like 30 skills in my back pocket. Yeah, I love that. And
That's amazing.
I know, Remy, I have no doubt that our audience will want to keep learning from you. So if our listeners want to reach out to you and or Compass Pro Bono, what's the best way to connect?
Absolutely. Well, I am open door policy, so I'm happy to chat with anyone who has questions or wants to dig deeper on these topics. I'm on LinkedIn, Remy Reya. You can find me. I haven't found anyone else with that name, so it should be pretty easy. But we do a lot of this work with organizations, and we collaborate with leaders to make workshops and lectures and sprints possible to help their teams upskill. Information about all of those programs and what we do and how we do it, as well as a bunch of free AI resources, they're all on our website. So if you go to compassprobono.org/AI, you'll find a treasure trove of information. We've done a bunch of webinars in the past about AI ethics, AI change management, AI best practices, and all of those are completely free to access. So I encourage anyone who's navigating this moment and trying to figure out where to go, where to look, to start there, because we really want to make it as easy to enter into this process as possible. And the last thing I would say, happy to talk, happy for you to reach out, but talk to your peers too, because so much of the opportunity right now comes from peer learning, right? If we're all behind, then nobody is behind. So I'd encourage you, first of all, to take a deep breath, know that you are exactly where you need to be, and just start the conversation with your colleagues or your team, right? So much, all of the value that we've gotten as an organization over the last 2.5 years from AI has been accelerated tenfold by the conversations we've had as a team, right? If someone in our finance department figures out a really unique and creative way to use AI and they keep it to themselves, then we've lost an opportunity for full team growth and learning. Equally, if someone in our development team learns that this really doesn't work for ChatGPT, right? It's really not good at this particular way of grant writing or grant editing. That becomes an opportunity for full team learning as well, right? And so the more we can be in conversation, the more we can remove shame from the conversation about AI and just talk about it freely, understanding that we're all navigating this together. We have to hold some complex realities. We have to think about how to use this in a mission-aligned, community-advancing way. Those are the conversations we need to be having right now. And I'd really encourage nonprofit staff in particular to lean into that conversation, because that is the only way we're going to steer these tools toward positive humanitarian pro-social ends is by us leaning in as a sector. And who better to lead that than the nonprofit sector?
Yeah, I love that. Really starting that conversation with the peers and learning from everybody who's using the AI, even if for me, for example, I use AI. Well, I use AI every day. But, there are so many things that I still don't know. As you've mentioned earlier, the skill thing, wow, it's a new thing for me. And I know that we can learn so many things from others who are using AI as well as we navigate this space. And you heard it right here, everyone. Definitely go give Remy and Compass Pro Bono a follow. Remy, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and sharing your knowledge on AI, especially since this topic is really, really timely in the nonprofit space. And for our listeners out there, if you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with a fellow fundraiser and make sure to subscribe.
Here's your next steps. Visit doublethedonation.com to explore the tools and strategies that schools and nonprofits use to unlock more revenue through corporate fundraising. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share the video with your team and peers.